So we want to welcome everyone from every location. You are so welcome to join us. We're so thankful that you came and you've taken this time out. Wherever you are listening to this message, there is something for you in this. We're in the Remember series here in Freedom Church, and the Remember series is all about remembering where we came from, remembering sort of that first love, remembering who God called us to be as a people, as a church, because it is amazing how you can forget who you were. And we've got to remember, and that's what God's been doing through this. And we're on the last part. This is the last part. This is like a bonus section because we had so many parts, and I think we added one more. And this is the one more. So we're going to go for this because I just felt we got to do it. We got to do it. And this one is all about, as you've just seen on the video, it's all about troublemakers. And we did that video in 2011. And this was just when we were breaking out. We were going into Cardiff. It was actually our first launch that year. It was all like happening. And we thought, you know what, we're going to cause some trouble. And we did cause some trouble. In fact, we haven't stopped causing trouble. And that's what this is about. And it's sort of not particularly PC. So it's like, you know, we got the video there with the riot shields and all that. And it's funny because actually today, I have someone special who was on that video. My son Luke from New York is here today. He's here. Yo, Luke! And he's serving over there with Hillsong Church in New York. And it's so great to see. Back then, 2011, he was in the sort of riot shield gang. He said, that's me. I said, yeah, he's in the middle. And he's here today. And I tell you what, when he was a young lad, he caused trouble. He caused trouble, and not of the good sort, the bad sort. And I just want to say, that is a picture of what God has done. God put in Luke to be a fighter and to be a troublemaker. But you know what? When we get that turned around for God and seeing what he is doing and serving in New York right now, they're working with young offenders. They're sort of working with the homeless. He's causing trouble on the streets in a whole other way. And that just excites me. And that's what I'm going to be speaking about. It's about troublemakers. It's about troublemakers, guys. You've got your story. You don't need to be in New York or Cyprus. You need to be where you are right now. And you remember who God called you to be. Because there is something, when you look at Jesus, right? That's what this is all about. When you look at the story of Jesus, he did not flow into ordinary life and just say, let's keep things quiet and calm. It was like there was trouble breaking out. It said, who's at the center of it? Jesus. How come he's speaking to those sinners and those prostitute people that he should not be as a teacher? Oh, he's a troublemaker. How come he's touching the dead because you're forbidden to touch the dead? Oh, because I'm going to go and do what I shouldn't do. He comes in and he eats food when he shouldn't eat. It's like we're meant to be fasting. Why are you all eating? Because we're troublemakers. And there's something, you see, it's not about causing trouble for the sake of trouble, but it's causing trouble when religion wants to bind you up. It's causing trouble when even the people around you are saying, hey, you better just keep in line. And that's what I'm going to share about. So I'm going to share a story right now, an amazing character called Gideon. And I just want to talk about Gideon. I had to get this in here for remember, because God wants to remind us, Gideon, right? Gideon, how Gideon starts off. This is like what they could make an amazing film out of Gideon. Hollywood, you can make a great film. It is like the story is incredible, and it really is a story of like this, I suppose, bullying and how one person stands up to the bullies. Like we all love that. It's like, come on, the underdog comes out fighting. He comes out, and this one person causes a huge amount of trouble just because he gets an idea of something, and that's what we're going to look at. So we're going to pick up the story, and I want you to realize that Israel at this point, because of their disobedience, for 7 years had been overcome by the enemy, the Midianites. And the Midianites, they were a nomadic tribe that moved from place to place. And it said there were so many of them, they were like the locusts, like they just covered everywhere. And you couldn't count them. That's how many. What they did is they moved from place to place. They poisoned the wells once they took what they wanted, and they burnt the grain. So everyone was discouraged and disheartened, and then they put people into slavery. And that's what they did. And for 7 years, this had happened. Now, that's a big case of bullying. And people, for 7 years, being subjected to the occupying forces, they were demoralized, discouraged, And this is where we pick up the story of this guy called Gideon. And we're going to pick up elements of the story. And it says here, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where the son Gideon, here he is, was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us?" Now, guys, just hold on. If an angel's going to turn up, like he's in a cave, he's actually in a cave, and he's hiding in fear for his life, and he's in this wine press, and he's crushing the grain. That's what he's doing for flour, for bread. He's in there in the dark, and if I was in there in the dark, and I'm walking around this big circular wine press, and suddenly there's this voice, the angel of the Lord says, "The Lord is with you, O valiant warrior." It's going to freak me out. I'm like, that's going to scare me to death. And he says, "Pardon me, Lord." I mean, it's amazing. "Pardon me, Lord, but if the Lord is with us, why has this happened to us?" So he comes back with this question. Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, "Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." He's saying, great, I'm a great big warrior. Well, it doesn't look like it from here. Do you know why he said, "Pardon me"? Because it says later on that he actually he's not even sure if this is an angel. See, we've got an idea, it's like angel, glowing white, it's like, "Here I am from the Lord." He didn't know. He thought he was an ordinary person. And that is why he's doubting. He said, I'm not sure if you're for real. And it's amazing. Do not underestimate the voice that comes to you. Even today, maybe I'm going to share something with you that is coming from the Lord himself. And you just got to be careful you don't discount what the Lord is saying. We want the big sort of blazing light and the earth to quake before we hear from him. But maybe God's going to speak in the quietness in a cave for you. Maybe there's something he needs to speak to you and you need to listen and hear what he has to say. See, Gideon, he got to a point where he'd seen a lot of rubbish. 7 years. He was hiding. He was in fear. Discouragement. I want to speak into discouragement. So if anyone struggled with discouragement in their life at any point, this is for you. If you're at a point of like seeing things and it failed and it didn't come through and you saw some bad things, Gideon, why is he saying, "Hey, look, I've looked and it's all right you saying that God's going to deliver us, but this is where I am and this is what I've seen." And what he's referring to is, do you know Gideon, his brothers were all slaughtered by the Midianites. So he had family that had been murdered so he's saying, hey, can you imagine like God coming and saying, "Hey, mighty warrior." Gideon's here saying, "Hey, do you know what I'm struggling to believe right now? Our family buried our sons. Our family, we have seen people slaughtered. We have seen impoverishment. We have seen this. And you're saying the Lord is with me?" I just believe that God is saying, come on, I want to stir your faith today. See, that's what he's doing. He's saying, I want to stir your faith and say, do you know what? It's time for change. It's time for change. We can very easily, see the wine press, you would normally walk around in the wine press. And the wine press, what it does for me is it really describes being in a cycle that you can't get out of. It's got high walls, and you're in there trading the grapes, more grapes. You're in a cycle, and discouragement will get you in a cycle. In fact, I'm going to go further than that. When you're really discouraged and discouragement overwhelms you, you become cynical. I don't know if you've been around someone who's cynical. They always like see the, "Oh, yeah, but." And this is what he was doing. He said, "Yeah, but what about my family? Yeah, what about, we got free from Egypt? What for this?" And you saw their cynical heart. And I know that I can get cynical when I focus on discouragement and then someone says, "Come on, believe again." I'm going, "Well, I did that last time." And I felt like you didn't come through. And we prayed for our brothers. And do you know what? They died. And this spirit of cynicism, he's going around. He's probably thinking about his brothers while he's going around. But today is the day that the voice comes and says, you are a valiant warrior, which doesn't make sense, guys. It doesn't make sense. God will speak things to you that do not make sense, but you have a choice to receive it or ignore it. You have a choice to say, hey, I'm just fed up with that stuff. He was breaking something. So there's just 3 things I want to show you from the story. This is the first one. We need to get a complaint over compliance. And what this means is, a complaint means you got to start complaining. This is not the way I was designed. This is not the cycle I want to live the rest of my life. Because discouragement wants to rob your life. Discouragement wants you to get in a place. Cynicism is not being clever. Oh, I know better. Cynicism is to rob you of your life. When you're cynical and say, oh yeah, but hang on a minute, what about them? Hang on a minute, what about this situation? Cynicism, it wants to freeze you, it wants to keep you in the cycle. But see, what's happening is, God is stirring through this angel, this voice saying, you need to get a complaint. You need to get a complaint. The complaint is saying, this is not, I'm not going to comply anymore. That's what's happening with Gideon. Something's going on in the dark, and he's going, I'm not going to comply anymore. People keep telling me, that I just need to accept things. Just preserve your life. You've lost too many. Just keep doing what you need to do every day, the routine. Oh, don't you step out of order. You just keep in the circle and the rhythm of cynicism. And when you get in, it's hard to get out of it. But God wants to break you out of the wine press. And there's something about you've got to get a complaint, because your complaint, the size of your complaint is the size of your vision. Why do people get stopped like soon on when they hit and they encounter barriers and resistance and discouragement? Because their complaint is only very small. But if you've got a huge complaint about racism, the size of your complaint will be to do with what you're going to do about it. And if you're not really bothered, because we don't really see much of that, and we ignore what is going on, and we haven't really got a voice about it, we're compliant. There are things in our world, if we haven't got a complaint about the way that marriage is being devalued, we're just going to comply, and we're going to adopt those standards that even our children will begin to adopt. This is what happened with Gideon, because he started to adopt what his father had adopted, and he started getting a place and just say, it's the way it is. This is what we're born into. You were not born into anything but God's best. And right now, you need to grab hold of that. You don't stand back and say, let's just carry on with the cycle. And I know people are going to listen to this word right now, and there's going to be something about, hey, listen to the word, let's go away and carry on. Some of us really need to make some big decision. It starts with this. You can just be compliant. You're going to start getting a complaint. And this is what he did. He started thinking, maybe. I'm sure in his mind. And the difference is, I believe, why was Gideon chosen? This guy who was in fear, hiding in the wine press. He wasn't up for the job. Maybe you've come in today and you're listening to this message and thinking, well, I'm just, I'm on the outside listening in. You're like Gideon. But you just open this ear and listen, because he was minding his business, and then suddenly came the disturbance. And I think it's all to do with a willing heart. I spoke about willingness. It's not about obedience, it's about willingness. I think there was something in him saying, you just give me one go. Things don't have to stay the same. So he's got his questions, his doubts, but there's something in him that is like, you just give me a go. And here is the angel. So we go on in Judges 6, verse 14. Let's pick it up here. It says, the Lord turned to him. So he doesn't answer the questions. Like, what about my trial? What about all the terrible things that happened? God doesn't even answer him. He ignores him. God will often ignore your questions and your excuses, and he'll just say, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian hand. Am I not sending you? And if I send you, who can hold you back? See, he's speaking. He's not going to enter a debate. He's saying, no, when I speak, it happens. When God's spoken into your life, it happens. He's like, we can be in a debate and a discussion, and we can read the books on certain things to try it. Sometimes we've just got to get up and do with something what we've got, Because he says here, go in the strength you have. That's interesting. And what I've learned is God is saying, just do something with what I've given you. I'll sort out the rest. But you've got to do something with what I've given you. Go in what you have. Am I not sending you? See, he's waiting for the earthquakes. He's waiting for the stuff, but you just say, no, go. And maybe we're waiting for something. Maybe you just need to go. And it's the ones that go, you see, there's this Gideon spirit that rises up. And he says, do you know what? I'm going to start thinking differently. And when I talk about self-esteem, this whole passage and this message of being a troublemaker, to be a troublemaker, you need to get the complaint over compliance. But you need to really understand who you are. And Gideon really had a very low self-esteem. He was very, very low in the self-esteem books. Because you'll see. He says, pardon me again, he says, very polite. Pardon me, Lord. Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? Have you seen who you're talking to here? Seen the size of me? I got no armor. I got no... And even my clan is the weakest in Manasseh. And I'm the least in my family. So it's like my tribe's the least, my family's the least, and I'm the least. I'm like the youngest. And you're looking to me. The Lord just answered again, I will be with you and will strike down all the Midianites and leave none alive. I'm going to complete what I start. I'm going to come through. And this is the big thing I want us to take away. If you miss anything in this message right now, you grab hold of this. Discovering your value unlocks your purpose. And what that means is many of us are searching for our purpose. But unless you discover your value, you'll struggle to find your purpose. And I meet people all the time that say, what's my purpose? And I'm trying to see what the future has for me. What's the plan that God has? And all the time we're battling with going, I feel such a failure, and I feel like I got discouraged, and I got a bit cynical, and I'm full of doubt, and I'm full of, just like questions, and I'm just not sure. And from it, we think somehow that we are not valued. And when we start to understand the value that God places upon us, it will unlock your purpose. Guys, I'm speaking to some people now, and so there's almost, for a few of you, there's a bit of a lethargy. I can see this in Hereford, right? There's a lethargy. It might be a bit warm wherever you are right now, but I'm saying you need to sit forward if you're drifting off. Press in if you're drifting off. Don't fold your arms and sit back and just go, what message have we got today? You can remain in the wine press, but that's not what I want for you. And this is going to be around your value. And if you understand your value, you're going to do something about it. Posture yourself to press into what God has, otherwise you will miss it. Because here he is, this is this massive thing. Many of us don't. We think by what we go through in life, it determines the value. No, it doesn't. We think that what happens to us and the robbery and the damage that happens to us, it determines our value. It doesn't. We think where we live determines our value. What we do determines our value. It doesn't. It's who you were designed to be. And this is what Gideon had all these questions. He said, I got this in my family, and this is what happened. My brothers were killed. We got this damage, and I come from this postcode, and I'm the lowest of the lowest. And he's saying, hey, I'm not even going to answer it because it's nothing to do. This is all about responding to what God says. And you need to respond. And I want to speak into that doubt and discouragement today. Where you just want to pull back. I'm saying press discovering your value. You know, if I gave you a £50 note or a $100 bill, right? And it's been used for all sorts of stuff. It's been used for gambling. Maybe a drug addict used it to get the last fix that he had. It's been passed from, and I could go through all sorts of things. You're going to not want it if I gave it to you? No, because the value of it is promised by the bank and says, no, it hasn't depreciated in any way. It's got its value right now. And it doesn't matter what you've been through, guys. It doesn't matter what you experienced. I tell you what, your value is what God said it was. And this is what's happening with Gideon. He's waking up. No, it's not by those that put upon me. It's not by what people have said to me. It's who God calls me to be. Think about it. He was in a wine press crushing wheat. Normally, those days, they would crush wheat with an animal called an ass. A donkey, right? And it would pull the stone around. And all day it would travel around. Now he's doing the work of an ass. You weren't designed to do that. But some of you are doing it. Some of you are under the control of what the enemy wanted to do in your life. And you're still paying a debt that happened a long time ago that Christ paid. But now it's time to get free. There is something, guys, something that God wants to do. He was doing it in him. I imagine at this point, as we go into the scripture here, Gideon suddenly gets this. And we're here and we go, yeah, come on, my value, I'm called for something great. I'm called for something more, not just this. And I can imagine that he goes away at this point and he gets his Spartan outfit on. He's perhaps he borrows it from somewhere and he's there, I'm ready. The Lord's going to be with me. I'm a valiant warrior. He gets his, the hat on with the plume and he's there, the shield and he looks at his one pack. And he's like, valiant warrior. And this is the funny thing, is he's ready because he hears, ready to go. And many of us can hear it, but I just want to show you something, right? God says, hold on. Hold on. Before you rush into battle, you got to do something. Here it is. It says, that same night, the Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd. What a funny thing. I'm about to go and fight. What's to do with farming? Take the second bull from the father's herd, the one 7 years old. Oh, 7 years old. Why is it 7 years old? Because for 7 years, Israel disobeyed God. And today was the day the sacrifice would be made, that this bull was born at the time they were occupied through their disobedience and had lived for 7 years, but this was the day of deliverance. Whoa. Tear down your father's altar to Baal, this foreign god that actually came around from Jezebel. So Jezebel had a control in the camp. Cut it down, the Asherah pole beside it that your father has set up on the top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants, did as the Lord told him. That's what he did. He tore it down. But because he was afraid of his family, I love this, afraid of your family. It's okay. Some of you have got family you need to be afraid of. But it doesn't matter. You can still pursue what God has. And it says, because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than daytime. I love this, guys, because this just comes, for me, this is even if you're afraid, don't discount what God's calling you to do. We think that somehow being brave means you haven't got any fear. But no, it's being brave is in the face of fear, I still choose. And this is something I've learned over the years, guys, when we've journeyed with God. Back in 2011, we made that video. It was like, are you ready to come? And it's like, I'm freaked out. I don't say it, but I'll tell you what, sometimes I'm thinking, what the heck are we doing? God, are you going to come through? And it's like, you got to take a step. Go in your strength, you see, he says. And as we did that, I'm still fearful. Is it going to work? Is it going to fail? What's going to happen? But I've learned, take a step, do something, step forward. And with it, you see, he goes and he does what God has asked him to do. And what this is saying, guys, is we need to sort out our own house before we go and try and deal with the enemy. What this means is I can go out and I think, hey, the enemy's I've got a complaint about this and a complaint about that, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to cause some damage. But if your marriage needs work, if you need to address some honor in your marriage, if there is issues around raising your kids, what he's saying is go and deal with the things. Go and deal even with the idols that you've raised up in your life and smash them down. We'll go in there soon. You need to go and deal with your own house first. And there are things that we want to get up and run at something, but I would say deal with your own house. Deal with any sin that might be in your own house. And he's doing it on behalf of his Father. He's saying, you've got to do this before I'm going to do a miracle. And this is what he went and did. But it didn't go too well. I think there's even something here about the way that we need to forgive. I've known some people, they want to see amazing things happen. and believe God for the best thing, but they struggle with unforgiveness. You're in a dangerous place. You're probably going to trip up on the way. Do you know, that's what this is all about. Say, deal with your heart. Deal with those things in your heart. Because if you start running after what I'm calling you for, so it's not just about being discouraged and finding your worth. It's actually about also dealing with your house, dealing with your heart, dealing with my heart. I've got to deal with my heart. God doesn't overlook it. He doesn't sort of look beyond that. The next point. We got to choose integrity over reputation. And that's what he was doing. He was saying, guys, do you know what? We love integrity in others. And it's high on the list for us. Integrity means wholeness and completeness. The opposite to it is hypocrisy. Say one thing, we do another. So what he's saying to Gideon, yeah, you can go and I want to see, you're praying for help and I want to see victory today for your people, but you're going to need to put your house in order because there's not integrity. And if you're going to do that, whilst you've got a false god in your house at home, it's so fascinating because some of us might say, oh, well, you know, perhaps he should have honored his parents and not touched the idol in the house. He went in there and smashed it up. Because it's like, no, we need to do something today. And from it, it says that they all turned around, the local people in the morning, they got up, and it said that they turned into a mob and they said, who's destroyed the altar, like the altar of Baal? We're going to get him. And what happens is they end up sort of wanting to murder him. So they turn up at his father's house and says, right, we've worked out, this is Gideon. Bring him out, we're going to kill him. I mean, guys, this is a dangerous situation. And he's here in this place. But then his father Joash says, do you know what? I think Baal, if he is the God that he is. So suddenly his father gets a little bit of like backbone. But where does he get it from? He gets it from his son. And this is saying, do you know what? That there can come redemption from sons and daughters to parents. And what he's saying is after 7 years, it's the son that is coming in. And he's saying, we're going to put things in order. He causes trouble. You man, Joash didn't know. He wakes up, he said, what the heck? We got trouble. We got a mob at the door. They're going to kill my son. And then he says, he remembers. We're called to worship the one true God. There is only one God. What did we end up doing? And suddenly there was like this change of heart, something stirring. And it says that so they leave him alone, but they say this thing in verse 32. They say, so because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they gave him a new name, Jerubbaal. They gave him this new name, and that says, Baal will contend with him. And from then, he gets a new name. Basically, it means troublemaker. And it actually refers to him. He gets his whole name changed, and they said, yeah, let Baal contend with him. He'll sort him out. You know, look what he's done. He's gonna get sorted, and that's the new name that he gets. That's why we've got to sort out our reputation. And I think how people look at us, sometimes we're so worried about the way people view us. Or want to be in the popular crowd. I want to be seen to do the right thing in the world that we're in. I'm saying Freedom Church, if we are going to build the kingdom the way God's called us to build, we will not be popular all the time. We will not it will be, oh yeah, those, you know, you're not always going to have a great, and if we're worried about our reputation, we're not going to truly follow what God has for us. And in the same way, he is here and he is speaking into this and he's saying, come on, you've got to choose this. You've got to choose this for me. Restoration comes. It is amazing how they see this opportunity because Gideon suddenly gets, it says the Spirit of the Lord came on him. And he suddenly puts out a call and says, come on, we're going to go and fight. And 32,000 people turned up. Then he said, oh my goodness, what have I done now? And it says, he quickly says, Lord, give me a quick sign. And he puts out his lamb fleeces. And he says, you know, I'm going to wake up in the morning and if the lamb fleece has got dew on it and it's dry everywhere else, that's a sign. He does it not once, but twice. God is okay with some of your doubts. God is okay with you saying, help me through this. But keep moving forward. Keep pressing forward in what God is doing. Because he was like saying, God, okay, I've got 32,000 men. That's a great start, but it's nothing compared to what we're going against. There were hundreds of thousands He's got 32,000. It's like, God, give me a sign. And at the end of it, God turns out. And he does answer him. And the angel comes. And from it, he builds another altar. And the altar says, the Lord is peace. He's reminding himself that in the middle of this situation, the Lord is peace. So in the middle of being a troublemaker, the Lord is your peace. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. Great, I got 32,000. This is like the incredible part of the story. You got to be kidding, God. Like we do, it's like when I've got enough money, when I've got enough, I'll make that decision of faith. When I've got to this point, Lord, when I get the signs all lined up, and turn out big angel. He's here with his 30, and God says, you got too many. Right? And God says, I can't deliver Midian. I can't put them in your hands, in the hands of Israel, because you would boast against me and say, my own strength saved us. And so God is saying, hey, you got too many. And you'll think this is down to you. So I want you to reduce them. So he sends away 22,000. Says, anyone that's scared, go. 22,000 went. Because there's something, if we have fear and doubt in if we let it overwhelm our life, he's saying, I need you to choose courage and choose faith. And here he is. He ends up with like just these 10,000 men. And then God turns around and says, there's still too many. What a story. Still too many. And he has a little test. He has a selection process. He ends up with 300. 300. Yet this is God saying, now we're ready. Now we're ready. And this is the last point. We need dependence over independence. And this means we really struggle, especially when we're in a place of doubt, discouragement, and fear. We want to fix it. We want to rely on ourselves to fix it. And this whole thing is, hey, you might only have 32,000, but if I give you the victory, you'll say, didn't we do a great job? Weren't we great warriors? And God said, I can't deliver you when this is about you. I can deliver you when it's about me. And guys, we've got to understand this. We have this huge issue with dependence upon God. We have a huge dependence of giving him control when things go wrong and saying, God, we trust you anyway. You're a good God. Even when things don't come through, you're a good God. What we want to do is we want to go away and we want to somehow take back control. And with it, do things our way. And this was the huge lesson that he was teaching Gideon. He was saying, depend on me. It wasn't just about pride, right? It wasn't just about, these guys are fearful. This really was about, you need to depend on me. The more I've learned over these years that I depend on him, I depend on Jesus. Do you know what I mean? That's when I see the miracles take place. The more that it's almost part of me that I could think, oh, this is, did a good job there. It's a dangerous place to be. Dangerous place. They went into the battle and they stood around. And then they smashed these jars with torches in at nighttime. And then they blew a trumpet, 300 of them. And it caused chaos in the camp. And they all turned around, started killing each other. Confusion, panic, fear. And then they ran off. God moved. It says in Judges 7:21, while each man held his position around the camp and stood and watched and stood firm in their faith, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. See the way the whole day is changing. Going from the wine press to the battlefield. Seeing God coming through in an amazing way. Do you know what? The miracle happens in the doing. Miracle didn't happen before they turned up on the outside edge. We're going to smash our clays and blow our trumpets and we're done for if God doesn't come through. They had to do it and trust that God was with them. They caused trouble that day that echoed through their history. So as we finish, guys, I want to bring you right back to this whole idea of understanding your value. And I pulled out this verse from Psalm 139:16, where God says, your eyes saw my unformed body. And all the days ordained for me were written in your book before even one of them came to be. And I want to share this verse and leave it with you, because we need to understand that God sees us as he made us. That he sees the plans and he looks from the end to the finish. Because when he was looking at Gideon and he called him in the winepress, O valiant warrior, he was looking at him from his end of his days, not the beginning. He wasn't looking at where he was. So even right now, if you feel like a failure, if you feel somehow overwhelmed by the situation, if you feel like full of doubt, God doesn't look at that. He looks at you and he says, come on, mighty warrior. There's something in you see, that he's pulling out, and he's saying, come on, I see you. See, he's got this thing that he doesn't look at your failure. He doesn't look at that, that 50-pound note and say, well, you've been around a lot. You've been misused, abused. He looks and he says, no, the promise is there. The promise is as it was from the day that you were formed, even right in the womb. Do you know what I mean? That's where you were a warrior, before you did anything. And there is something, you're full of faith. You're full of faith, but you bought into the fact that you might be faithless. You're not a failure, but you're an overcomer. You're not someone who is cheap, but you're a princess. You're not someone who is struggling with that value, but God is saying, no, I sent my son for you because you're of the greatest value. Your worth, I came for you. And this is what he said. So guys, these are the things. The first one, discovering your value, it unlocks your purpose. And if you're trying to find your purpose, discover who you are in God. Discover who you are. That's what a troublemaker is made of. That's when you start like stepping out from compliance and start saying, I've discovered who I am. It's not down to who they say I am. It's who you called me to be. The next one. Your purpose then is fueled by integrity. Don't go running after your purpose if you're not interested in character and integrity. You need to fuel it. You need to fuel it. This is how people will step out. I found my purpose, but if you ain't got integrity, it can crash. How do you fuel it? Through integrity. And lastly, integrity unleashes courage. You want to be courageous? You want to find some courage to run at that which scares you? Integrity does that. Character will keep you on the battlefield. Character will keep you in the place. When you know, do you know what? I am whole. I'm not living one way at work and then a different way at church. I'm living for you 24/7. And that means when you come and you step out of the wine press and you say, I'm going to finish the cycle. I'm going to finish the cycle. And do you know what? I'm going to break into a new day. And there is something about this word for you today of saying he has called us as his people to be troublemakers in the earth. That is to come against injustice. That is to come against things where there is hate and bring love. There's something about those that need to be redeemed. There's something about those that need reconciliation. There's something around coming and fighting against racism. There's something about all these things. You want to be a troublemaker? Make a difference in your life? You need these three things. You realize that spirit of Gideon is upon every one of his people. But you need to take hold of it and believe it and act upon it today. God believes in you, but you've got to get up and start believing that he believes in you. That this is the day that it changes. This is the day it changed for me. I was trying to avoid God's calling. And yet God said, no, it's you I'm after. A troublemaker is never who you think it is. So maybe it's you.